Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And today we're going to take you through sort of what we do at Yojee and what sort of industry challenges that we solve and the space that we work in. So we'll do a quick introduction for myself. For those of you that haven't met me before, my name's Shane Dupril. I'm the CRO of Yojee. I joined just at the start of July. Have a background in logistics and software tech, and I think that the value that Yojee brings to the first mile, last mile is quite exciting, and I'm looking forward to sort of continuing Yojee's journey. Now, Mark, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi team. So I'm Mark Connell. I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at Yojee. I've been at Yojee for about 4 years and had various roles. I joined Yojee as the Chief Product Officer. I've sort of have over about, I'm showing my age, almost 30 years in this space in supply chain, working in both logistics tech companies like WiseTech and Yojee, and also working in industry companies like Mainfreight, predominantly in Asia Pacific, but I have spent a lot of time in Europe and North America and South Africa as well. Really passionate about this space, really loving the challenge of modernizing and really sort of enhancing that last mile, first mile space. And there are a number of you who know Shane and I from previous lives, and I'm just very excited to be working back with Shane Dupril. Love to have him on board, and we're both very excited about the next generation of Yojee and how we can really move our products forward. So really privileged to share this webinar with you guys.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so let's talk about the challenges faced by industry. And on this call today, we don't have just freight forwarders. We've also got BCOs or cargo owners. And in our experiences around the world, dealing with global customers, we see a lot of similar type challenges that are faced managing first mile and last mile carriers. Often there's very manual processes still in a lot of regions. We see when you deal with carriers, there's varied tech that you have. You might deal with a carrier who has a lot of tech. You might deal with a carrier that has a lot of or has low amounts of tech. And then we see different processes with different carriers. Whether you're a shipper of cargo or you're a freight forwarder coordinating cargo movements with your carriers, you might have to contend with different booking portals, contend with different communication methods. So we see emails still happening, SMSs, WhatsApp messages. Often we see people needing to actually call the carriers to get updates because they don't have any integration or visibility tools. And then different operating methods of managing the carrier's requirements or managing your own transport requirements, whether you've got reports that are being generated out of your system, spreadsheets. People still love the good old-fashioned Excel spreadsheets to control their items. A lot of checking and double checking, and still a lot of manual coordination needing to manage your first mile and last mile requirements. Often we see forwarders and even shippers spending large amounts of time managing single shipments, like coordinating the activities with the truckers that can lead to a lot of inefficiencies. Still, there exists limited tracking visibility or pockets of different tracking ability depending on the carriers you deal with. It's challenging to get up-to-date information for your clients, and often needing to call carriers to get the latest statuses information. So I think, when we look at what Yojee does, it's working to solve those challenges that forwarders and shippers face when they're moving that first mile, last mile carriers movements. I think if you look at the supply chain as a whole, there's a lot of tech in that middle section, but towards the end, it can be quite fragmented. You might only deal with 6 or 7, different ocean carriers or 10 or 12 different airlines, but then you've got thousands of different carriers in that first mile, last mile option. And they're the challenges that we at Yojee want to help solve and deliver value to the supply chain participants. I'm not sure, Mark, if you wanted to add anything in there.
No, I think that's well said. Yeah, I mean, both Shane and I have a lot of experience both at the first and last mile, but also on that air and ocean movement. And there's been a lot of investment over the last 20 years we've seen in getting that visibility, getting that control, over land and air, air and ocean. But yeah, as the freight sort of moves onto the land and you're dealing with a lot more carriers, it becomes a lot more precarious. And the thing that we've seen here is that really disparate set of processes that you need to do for individual carriers, but also for the team that's working inside your businesses. They have to operate in many different ways, generally in their own silos. And it's very difficult for companies to make data-driven decisions, and that's really important, data-driven decisions. It's how do you have conversations with your customers about performance metrics when it's very difficult to consolidate, default or delivered in full and on time sort of performance metrics. You can't really get that from many customers. So yeah, we'll start to talk about how Yojee solves that over the next few slides.
I think, yeah, you're right. And like ultimately what those pain points lead to is this type of scenario where you have, poor visibility, poor control, inefficiencies, and a lot of unpredictability in your sort of first mile, last mile. Okay, so I think that what you said, Mark, there too, that lack of actionable data is quite powerful as well. Like trying to figure out, where you're up to in your transport move, what's done, what's not done, checking and double checking things, being able to give, that single point of visibility is what Yojee does well. These sort of operating models make it very challenging to scale. And then we see, because obviously Yojee operates in a lot of different markets, we see different regions of the world experiencing different effects, more or less, right? Like in Southeast Asia, there's a lot of WhatsApp messages going back and forth. In other regions, it's a lot of emails and phone calls. But ultimately, that's those supply chains ends that are very fragmented that we want to sort of bring together in a unified platform. And here, you can see, whether it's a shipper or a logistics service provider, or the receiver of the cargo, or a carrier partner, everyone faces different challenges. And with our platform at Yojee, we want to bring all that together.
Yeah, I think that's really important. If you go back to the slide there, is that we recognise, and at Yojee we work with different actors in the supply chain. We work with shippers, we work with the people responsible for moving the freight or organising the movement of freight. We work with transport carriers, physical transport carriers, and less so, but we are involved with the recipients of that cargo. And all of their pain is somewhat different, but there are very similarities too, lack of visibility, lack of control. How do you manage your ESG strategies? How do you scale? How do you get paid quickly? Often it takes a long time to get paid because PODs take a long time to get back to the ultimate shipper, and I think that little diagram on the bottom left, poor visibility for the shipper, poor control for the logistics service providers, really inefficient transport networks, just creates a very unpredictable first mile, last mile, which ultimately makes it more difficult for you to not just keep your customers, but obtain new customers.
Absolutely. So what we do at Yojee, right, is provide a transport management solution for your contracted road carrier networks. And so managing your carrier partners, you might even have a couple of your own assets. And our customers use Yojee to connect and collaborate and execute those freight deliveries with their carrier partners. And we're going to do a bit of a platform demonstration shortly. So this is where we sit. We sit in the middle. We connect all of the different participants in the supply chain, whether you're a logistics service provider pushing data or pickup requirements down to a carrier that's going to execute those, whether you're a shipper that's actually moving cargo to your receiver. We're not a solution for freight forwarders. We're not a solution for BCOs. We're a solution for this managing road carrier networks. Right? And that's what we do. And we've got a couple of case studies to show you in just a minute from two very different ends of the spectrum. But that's what we do here, and this is where we sit. And this is how we overcome all those challenges, by providing a solution for our customers. So just to talk a couple of real life cases and how we fit into those couple of customers. This is a small freight forwarder in Australia operating from a single site. They're actually a New Zealand freight forwarder with a single office in Australia. They don't have any trucks of their own. All of their transport requirements are outsourced. They've got 2 FCL carriers they work with and 2 LCL/air carriers. A lot of their FCL movements were managed via phones and emails. Their LCL movements were manually data entered into external booking portals. They have inconsistent PODs coming back depending on which carrier it was that got sent, or what transport mode it was, and they had little to no tracking data. So we gave them an integrated platform, right, to facilitate the integration with their downstream partners. We refer to carriers as downstream partners. So data flows into Yojee, which is integrated with their FMS, their freight management system. And then from there, it flows out to the carriers. And those carriers push data back into the Yojee platform, which then flows back into their FMS. That's eliminated, manual processes for them and improved their operational performance quite a lot. And that's just an example of a small, freight forwarder that we have in Australia. And on the other end of the scale, when we start talking about, cargo owners or BCOs, this is an example of one of our larger customers based in Indonesia. I think, Mark, you wanted to talk about this one?
Yeah, so Asia Paper and Pulp is one of the largest paper and pulp companies in the world. They ship to over 150 countries in the world. So they operate 6 different paper mills throughout Indonesia. On a daily basis, they work with 250 independent carriers, each of those having obviously a number of drivers. So in total, I think they're dealing with about 1,500 drivers with those 250 companies. And they're doing approximately 70,000 freight orders per month. So you can see that Yojee's gone from a small, modest freight forwarder there in Australia all the way to a beneficial cargo owner here in Indonesia. And they implemented SAP, but they still had a huge amount of problems managing on a daily basis, as you can appreciate, all those different contractors and their drivers. Everything was paper-based, WhatsApp. They did a lot of WhatsApping. They had no way to have any meaningful, like I said in my previous duties, they had no real meaningful way of having any discussions with their carriers about their performance. They had no way to really choose which carriers were performing well to give more freight to and which carriers were not performing well. They had no idea where any drivers were. They had a lot of problems with drivers just showing up to their mills looking for freight. And they had a lot of difficulty in confirming whether the actual freight had arrived where it needed to be. And they dealt with multiple freight modes. They do full container loads to and from the ports for finished product. They do LTL for raw materials coming into their mills, empty container movements and relocation. So a fairly complex transport carrier network that they had to try and manage on a daily basis. And so what they did is they've implemented Yojee at one of their mills, and we're going into another 2 next week. And they now have a standard way to engage with all 250 carriers. All of their drivers now have the driver Yojee app that they can now manage and gain control over where everyone is in their supply chain. They utilize an integrated gate pass feature inside the Yojee platform. So that means that no carrier or driver can enter their facilities without being qualified to be there. And it's fully integrated but in both directions with their SAP system. So all their orders come from SAP into our Yojee platform where their transport functions are managed with their outsourced carriers, and everything is then updated back into their SAP system. So quite a different type of business. Same software, same platform, working in both those 2 very different use cases.
Thanks, Mark.
So Shane's going to get into a bit of a product demo, just a bit of a high-level view of the product and what it looks like.
Let's get into the fun stuff, and there's always exciting when we get to do a live demo. So this is the Yojee platform. I've just basically logged in, and this is what we call our dashboard. Quick point of note, because we do have a lot of people from around the world on this platform. The platform and the driver app are available in multiple languages as well. Okay, so it's not all just English based. It's platform can be easily switched to a different language, as can the driver app as well. So this dashboard gives you a view of all of your work. Right? Now, this dashboard can be configured based on individual user preferences. So whether you're potentially a manager or a team leader or a planner, you can customize these widgets to suit your own requirements. And you can also have the color coding set to change colors based on different properties and different parameters that you might be interested in. Right? So what I'm interested in might be different to what Mark's interested in, to what another person might be interested in. And those can be customized very easily through the widgets button. And then what we see on the map, I'll just bring up the legend, is you can see work that's, you can see your own drivers if you have your own drivers in blue. You can see work that's assigned to a driver, which would be purple. Excuse me. We can see work that's even assigned to our carrier partners. Sorry. Excuse me. And we can see all the associated pickup and drop-off locations.
Yeah, so while Shane's getting a drink and
You're nearly choking then. Sorry, did you want to continue, mate?
That's okay. You go. It's all right. Don't want to interrupt you.
So from there, these are all clickable, and users can actually click into these as well. Or you can toggle things on and off. So if I wanted to not see things that are completed, I can simply click into here and unflag items. Sorry, it's like I just swallowed a bug or something. Okay, so from here though, it's important to note that the orders have got to Yojee via an integration. So whether it's your freight management system, if you're a freight forwarder, or whether an order management system like SAP or a WMS, all of those orders have come into the system via an integrated way. It's also possible that you can upload CSV files as well. So then if we turn our attention to day-to-day operations, how does a planner or how does a freight movement person coordinate those movements? I'm just going to jump over here to items. Excuse me. Sorry, we have 3 different views that a user can look at. We have Explore, which gives you a map view and a list of all of your jobs. We have a list view, which provides you a list as it suggests, which is very similar to Explore, but without the actual map. And we have a higher level of transport order method here. So if I'm a freight forwarder and I want to coordinate or push my activities to what we call our downstream partners, that can be done through the Yojee platform. Today, I'm going to manually do that, but it can also be automated through workflow behaviors as well. Right? So if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to put them up as well. So if I want to transfer something to a downstream partner, right, and I'm going to do this in Explore view, I'm going to bring up a job.
And for those, as we've got a lot of people from all over the world, the map is snapped into Melbourne, but of course it'll snap to whatever your region is that you're working in. So if you're in Singapore, it'll be a map of Singapore. If you're in South Africa, it'll be a map of South Africa. We're just, for the sake of today, Cam, who's one of our, he's going to be working as a driver, he actually lives in Melbourne. So we're just showing this configuration in a Melbourne view. So. I think you're still on mute there, Shane.
At the moment, this is an order that's not assigned to anybody. What I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this to our downstream partner. So you can filter for orders. So I might filter for orders based on different properties, different statuses, different clients, different zones. In this example here, I've just targeted one specific order for us. I'm going to select that order, and across to the right-hand side, I can look for a partner, and I'm going to assign this to Melbourne Ocean and Air Haulage. Again, this can be automated. And when I do that, it's going to basically say, are you sure you want to transfer this? Once I've transferred that order, the status you'll see here changes to transferred pending. Now, what transferred pending means is that that job has been transferred to our partners, right, or your trading partner, and it's pending their acceptance. It's important to note as well, what your downstream partners get is also a Yojee platform that they can log into and accept their orders. What my colleague Cam's going to do right now is simulate what you will see in your platform when that carrier partner actually accepts that order. So Cam, do you want to go ahead and accept that order, please? And this will all transfer and happen in real time. So I can see that order is transferred pending. And once I just refresh it, it's now transferred and unassigned. What that means is your carrier partner has accepted that order, but they haven't yet assigned it to one of their drivers. So immediately, if you think about visibility, you think about planning, you think about controls, you can see that your carrier partner has got it in their system and they've accepted it. Right? You don't have to worry about, have they seen the email, have they registered the job? You can see that they've got it and it's just currently unassigned. The next step, just to run through that, would obviously be for that carrier partner to then assign work to a driver. So Cam, can you go ahead and assign that to a driver, please? I'll just refresh this. Once that's assigned to a driver, you can see the status here of this order actually changes to transferred and assigned, right? Which means that they have now taken that order and assigned it to one of their drivers. They would do that the same way that I'm assigning it to them downstream. They would just be selecting their drivers and assigning it directly to their driver. Let's give it a second. And then obviously the next step would be that carrier partner is now going to start executing that transport order. So Cam, would you mind completing the pickup on that transport order?
So what Cameron's doing here in the background, and just to not make the webinar so confusing, is he's using the Yojee driver app, and he's simulating the role of a downstream carrier's driver. And you have access to be able to see Cam. So you can see Cam's actually where he lives now. Shane, you want to point to him just below. So that's actually Cameron.
Simulating on the
Yeah.
app, yeah.
That's where Cameron is on the app. It's important to note that he's not a driver set up in our platform. He's a driver in Melbourne Air and Ocean. Given the right permission, so partners can choose to share or hide their drivers' locations. Predominantly, we find that all of our partners or our customers share their locations with their upstream partners. You'll notice that he was invisible when he never had any of our consignments, but as soon as the consignment, my consignment or Shane's consignment, was assigned to that driver, he popped up on our map, and we can now have access to his location while he's carrying out our goods. So yeah, it's great that we get his visibility, even though he's not a driver for us.
So we get to see our freight moving. Now, if your carrier partner actually chooses to use the Yojee platform and driver app or wants to integrate back with it, you'll see here that as soon as the cargo got picked up, we actually get an ETA. So Cam's ETA for delivery is now 2:17 p.m. And that will update in real time. So if you get stuck in traffic and that ETA changes, that will also be updated. So you'll have visibility into that set of data, and any data that the carrier partner sends back will be visible in the Yojee platform as well. The next step is obviously to execute the delivery. So Cam, who's the driver, can you go ahead and complete the delivery, please, Cam? So at all these stages, if you were a forwarder and you need to know where your work is at, or if you're a shipper and you need to know where your jobs are up to, it's very easy just to come straight into, transport orders or list view, and I'll talk about a few more of these in a second, and simply search for that order, and you'll get the most recent status of what's occurred. Now, on the driver app now, Cam will be capturing a signature. He'll also be capturing images of the cargo. The driver app has an integrated camera function, which will be uploaded and come back into the Yojee platform, which will then push back to your FMS as well. And you can see now we have this, the delivery is completed as well. So the pickup was done. Now the delivery is done. Our icons have turned green. And this little eye here, if I go to POD, so this POD document can also be automatically sent to a customer. The whole platform can be white labeled, so you don't have to have, it's not Yojee branded. It would be your own company's branding. And you can see here that Cam's actually signed for it. And you can see here he's signed for it at 154, which is now. And then we've got the actual picture of the delivery package as well. Additionally, you've got your POD coming straight back in, integrated back into your FMS. There's no problems with the visibility or the tracking information. And you'll also have the ability to send your client via SMS or via an email a trackable link, which will appear here. This can be triggered off, early on in the process, and the client can continually track it, or you can trigger it at different milestones as part of the flow. Yeah. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free to type them up.
Well, questions are coming through. Thank you, everyone, and we'll read them out at the very end. So if we're not answering, if you're entering questions and you're thinking we're not receiving them, we are receiving them, and we'll just read those out at the very end. So thanks for your questions; they're coming through. Yep.
Okay, so the Explore view, like when you're a planner, you've got the Explore view, which gives you the ability to push things to your downstream partners or execute them on your own platform. With your own drivers. List view will provide the visibility. Pretty similar to Explore view, except it doesn't actually provide you all of the map data, right? So it gives you a list view effectively like this. And then transport orders provide you a much more high level view with just, single lines for all the information. But I do want to touch on some of the other tools that Yojee has that can make your transport planning experience easier, particularly if you do have a couple of your own fleet items. And I'm just going to go into list view for that. So if you have, I'll just search for things that are unassigned. If you have your own couple of drivers, for example, you might want to identify work that you want to allocate to them. Again, you can filter for that. Select some jobs, and the planning experience can be done a variety of ways. So I could click Cameron. This would be a different Cameron because he's our driver at the moment, or myself. And I can do a quick assign, which would quickly assign that work across to myself. Right? And now that work has immediately been assigned to myself as a driver. Or alternatively, if I wanted to manual plan, I could select a bunch of orders, select a driver, and I can manually plan for that driver. And that will allow me to actually see what's been allocated to that driver, change their routes. Perhaps I wanted to do all the pickups first. Okay, and assign. But we also have what we call the solver, which is where the system will actually determine the best route for the driver, which is pretty powerful. So if I was to, for example, select a couple of orders, again, filtering on the criteria that I was interested in, and assign it to a driver, I can use this Optimise tool, which will then look at what the driver already has allocated to them, as well as these new items, and it will then work out the most optimal route for the driver to finish. Or sorry, start and finish. And you can see here, it'll actually map that out, and then that will be sequenced for the driver on the driver app.
And you can select multiple drivers and multiple orders. So if I select 200 orders and 10 drivers, it'll work out what the least number of drivers and the least kilometers traveled to do the most optimal route for those 200 orders. So it solves many jobs to many drivers as well.
I think the team up in Singapore, Mark, in our Singapore office, were just telling me the other day that they'd done one with 400 orders and 22 vehicles, and you've been able to save. What we're able to do with the client in Singapore was actually reduce the number of vehicles they needed per day, because we were able to solve and optimize their routing for them, which was pretty cool to actually watch happen with a large number of orders. But ultimately, what we're trying to do here in Yojee, is solve those challenges we talked about before by giving our customers, a single portal where they can, visualize, optimize, and centralize all of their work. Everything I'm doing here now can be automated through workflow rules that you want to push to downstream partners, but it also gives you a very powerful planning experience to be able to identify and optimize your own vehicles if you have them. And then as the data flows back from your carriers, that would then push back into your FMS or order management system or WMS system. One feature functionality that we've also found to be quite popular is the ability to do what we call a broadcast. So when we come to transport orders, which is, like I said before, it's more of a rolled up view. Again, I can filter for things that I'm interested in and identify a few orders that I could then transfer to a downstream partner. But instead of transferring, I could select a broadcast, and I could say I wanted to push this across to MG Barnes and Melbourne Ocean Air Haulage, and that will be pushed into both carrier system, and one of them will be able to accept it, and then it will drop off the other carrier. So you can essentially broadcast work out to your trucking partners to see who has the capacity to do it. You can also do that with your own drivers and broadcast as well. And then we have functionality for chat as well. So if you needed to chat to drivers, you can chat directly to your drivers from the app. So, we're bringing all of those requirements together into a single portal. So when you do need to identify where your order's at, get the latest status, understand where your driver's at, understand if your carrier partners have accepted it or picked it up or delivered it, it'll bring it all together for you in this single unified platform. Mark, did you want to add anything in?
No, I think you've just hit it right there on the nail on the head there. Whereas we have a single platform to interface with your carrier partners. If you're controlling your own assets, generally they'd need to be two separate TMS platforms. So we have a visibility play for your transport team. We have an execution play for your downstream transporters and your own assets, and all of it can feed your freight management system or your order management system, whether that be SAP or CargoWise for your freight management system or your own WMS. So everything is through an open API type platform it's very easy to talk to us and for us to talk back to all your other platforms as well.
I think what's also good, Mark, and just, people might be wondering why I've spent time in Explore View or not List View or Transport Orders. Essentially, each of these screens give you very similar ability, but it depends on how you might like to work. Like, I tend to like using the map view, but I know, Mark, when we've talked previously, you would often spend time in sort of list view, right? There's an ability to work the way that suits you, whether you want to work on an Explore view and visualize the map, because some people might find that handy, or whether you want to work with more of a list, right? Or whether you want to work with, a higher level, just show me the orders and just assign them out, or transfer them to other partners. So there's a variety of ways of working. And then if you've assigned everything, like if we said, well, okay, everything's been assigned, then quite simply we're going to look at our dashboard and we're going to be able to see. I haven't saved that, so let me cancel that. You've got your dashboard there that can sit on a wall or a screen, and you can see things, moving day by day. So you don't have to be in the Yojee platform, right? You don't need your transport coordinators to actually go in here and do all this manual planning. Today, I wanted to show you what it can do for you and the power of that, but we can automate a lot of those pushes from your FMS or your OMS or your WMS straight into Yojee. The rules engine can then automatically push that onto your downstream carrier partners. And for your carrier partners that don't have their own tech or don't want to integrate, they will get a Yojee portal as well that they can then use to assign to their drivers. This is what they see on their side, where they've got incoming transport orders from their upstream partners, from their forwarders or their shippers that they can accept. And they also get a driver app as well that they can use as well. Yeah. Sorry, I just lost my thing. So really for Yojee, it's about centralizing, visualizing, and optimizing. And we provide, solutions to the challenges for managing first mile and last mile supply chain moves. Like we started, this webinar today talking about the challenges, and I think, most people here that I've recognized a lot of names probably in agreement that, managing that first mile, last mile still requires a lot of manual intervention in a lot of cases, a lot of emails, phone calls. What we do is bring all that together in a single platform to give everyone everyone a centralized experience that they can use. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Want to make sure we don't go too much over time. So let's have a look at a bit of Q&A. Like I said, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type any more up. Might get Alex to come back on camera and just help us out with reading some of those, because I've got too many screens open, Alex. So Alex is based in Singapore. He's our head of product and customer care. Alex, do you want to introduce yourself or just say hello?
Well, hello. Yeah, I think you've just introduced me. Thanks for that, Shane. So we have some questions coming in, and there's a bunch of questions that are fairly similar. So I'll try to combine them. So if I'm paraphrasing a little bit, then apologies for that. So first question that I see right now, and came in during one of the use cases that you mentioned, because either one of you referred to, I think, data flowing from an FMS to Yojee to a partner, and it says you mentioned information flows back, but what kind of information flows back into? Well,
oh yeah. So sorry, Mark.
No, you can answer that, Shane. That's fine. We'll take turns.
I'll do the easy ones. Basically, it's milestone data. So you've got cargo's been picked up, cargo's been delivered. You've got and the POD documentation as well. So if you think of like the key movements that a job goes through, it's been picked up, it's been delivered, and you've got your POD document that can be flowed back as well.
And your estimated times as well.
Oh,
so estimated time. So it's your actual and your estimated milestones go back. So in theory, if we look at that FMS scenario, your air and ocean operators who might be working in your freight management system, typically they'd have to call the wharf cartage or the transport department who might be working in Yojee, or the carrier if you don't have Yojee. All of that stuff will flow back to their air and ocean jobs. And so they can get updates in real time in the screens that they're familiar with working in. So yeah. And the POD. And also, just while we're talking about that, it's important to note the documents that might be sitting in your FMS system that you'll need your carriers to use, maybe a DO or something like that, documents can also flow from freight management systems or your order management system into the Yojee platform, down to the partners, and even onto the driver app as well. So the drivers have the ability to bring up documents that might have originated in your warehouse management system. So.
Okay, well, I think that answers the question. But the person or the people actually who asked similar questions, if it doesn't, or if you need more clarification, just put it in the Q&A or in the chat. Another kind of question that came up a bunch of times in different variations is Yojee specific to Australia or other countries? And for Australia specifically also, what percentage of Australia's wharf FCL cartage providers does Yojee have on board?
So
it's actually two questions. So the first part is the Yojee solution specific to Australia or any other countries?
Well, the short answer is no, because the problems that we see are the world over. Predominantly, Yojee has worked in Southeast Asia and Australia. I think that's purely just more where our relationships are. The problems that we solve happen all over the world. We do have customers in South Africa. We had customers in Europe as well. We've yet to operate in North America, but that's more from a commercial perspective rather than a product perspective. So the product will work, as Shane said, it's multi-language and will work in most countries. In terms of exact carriers and FCL carriers, I think what we'll do at the end of this is we'll provide a list of all the carriers, because that question does come up. We have like 900 carriers all over Southeast Asia. So what we'll do is we'll provide you with a list of all the carriers that we're connected into. So yeah, but in Australia, like, it's an interesting market because predominantly technology is more established in that market. And so we integrate with carrier systems, and more in Southeast Asia, there isn't a lot of carrier technology. So they generally come onto the Yojee platform and collaborate directly on our platform. But in terms of integration, like I said, we'll send that through with this. We'll send a link to this webinar. We'll send a link to our carrier documentation and also the Q&A, if that's okay, Alex, rather than list it all out.
I'm just reading the questions, right? I'm not the one asking
it.
So it's okay with me. Okay. I see we have some questions coming through the chat as well, but let me first go to this one. Is there any in-truck hardware required to run this, or is it all on the app?
No in-truck hardware. It's available on the App Store or Google Play. You could download it right now. And you know, what I was doing today, when I was assigning work to a downstream partner, and then, you know, Cam was acting as that partner and assigning it to the driver, it'll be immediately visible on the driver's app.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then another one here is, do transporters pay for using Yojee? And if so, how do you deal with companies that don't want to use it?
Do you want me to answer that, Shane? Yes. So the short answer, the short answer is no. So your downstream carriers or the truckers don't have to pay for Yojee at all. And if they're doing work for multiple forwarders, they can aggregate work coming from multiple companies on-site the platform. So we have transport companies in Indonesia who do work for a multitude of our customers, and they receive freight from our customers into their Yojee system. They execute free of charge. If they want to then go and use Yojee to create their own orders and do business for other shippers or movers of freight, then they can enter into their own commercials. But no, there is no cost for them to come on and execute. The driver app is free, and their version of the Yojee portals is free as well. And what was the second part? Oh, and in terms of adoption, it's always challenging. Like this is the part that makes what we do hard. Modernizing and digitizing Southeast Asia transport networks. It's not an easy thing. So we spend a lot of time, Alex and his team, in dedicated carrier adoption. So we have a team that will work with the downstream carriers who will help them understand the value to their own business and to the supply chain. bringing on and working with their drivers as well. So it's part of our onboarding. It's not just giving it to our customers and making it their problem. Change management and customer adoption is a big part of what we do in the sales process.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's not a unique challenge to Yojee either. Like, you know, change management is difficult for any projects that you'll often do in this space.
So for example, in that Asia Paper and Pulp, we sent some people over there who just their sole purpose was to sit with the carriers. They had nothing really to do training APP. They worked in with the drivers and in with the carriers to help them adopt the product. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you for that. Next one. This one it comes through the chat. Assuming that a forwarder's transport booking can be pushed from CW1, can Yojee automate and assign the booking to the delivery transport company shown on the CW1 shipment/transport booking? The answer is yes, but
we can create a workflow rule that triggers that through to the downstream partner.
Yeah. So it could come from the shipment, CargoWise shipment, CargoWise brokerage job, CargoWise CFS job, CargoWise warehouse job, through the transport bookings into Yojee, and we take the carrier that's nominated on those parent jobs, and as Shane said, we can then automate the transfer of that to the downstream carrier. So there's some automation that happens on CargoWise One, and there's some automation that happens within Yojee.
Good point.
And anything we send back will then be also available on those parent jobs. So it'll be available on the parent shipment through CargoWise's one aggregated workflow. So
excellent. Right, maybe just a couple of be careful of everyone's time. Yeah.
Sure. So I see there's two. There's one message with 3 questions in there. I think the first one was answered. So that was what countries is the system available in? So I think we covered that. But then the next 2 in that same message relate to rating, and I think also specifically maybe to CargoWise. So it says, is there any ability to view multiple carrier rates for the cartage movements in order to review multiple rate offers for the pickup / delivery for multiple carriers, and who has the best rate? So main question, is there any ability to view multiple carrier rates for the cartage movements?
So inside, we'll talk inside Yojee. So inside Yojee, Shane didn't touch on it really in this webinar, but there is the ability to set up rate cards, buy and sell rate cards. So you as a mover of freight can go and set up sell rate cards to your customers, and then you can also set up buy rates for all your individual carriers. So if I had 20 different carriers, I can set up my buy rates, and I can obviously set up my sell rates to my customers. And then depending on which carrier I use, it'll work out my profit margins as well. And equally the same, if your downstream carriers are setting up their rate cards, they can set up sell rate cards to you, which automatically become your buy rate cards. So there's that automatic recognition of buy and sell rate cards, and it reconciles them together and calculates the profit margins as well. In terms of, can you see what those rates are to do carrier selection? Not right now, but we are working on that. So we have all that data, but rate shopping is not something that any of our customers have required at the moment. They generally have their contracted rates and choose carriers that they based on trade lane, etc. But we do have the ability to set all that up and do carrier reconciliation for the rates.
All right, excellent.
Okay. Do we have time for one more, or shall we answer them up?
Yeah, sure. Let's do one more, and then we'll wrap it up, because I think we're a little bit over time.
Okay, sorry. So then quickly, does Yojee help fleet controllers determine which driver to allocate in terms of number of jobs he has or proximity to the job location?
Yeah, Shane, I'll answer this one too.
Yeah.
When Shane was doing his planning to his drivers, each driver has its total capacity and how loaded up they are. So you can see that in your planning, both in list and explore view. So when you're looking at your drivers, you can see where they are in terms of their capacity, both how much available capacity they have and how much they've used. And also, again, this is why we talk about different preferences using the map view. If all of a sudden you Sorry, Shane, you've just.
Right? Oh, you want? Sorry, you wanted to go back there.
I
Apologies.
was looking at the map view. You can, well, here's a map view. You can sort of see proximity wise, okay, I've got a delivery up in the top right-hand corner, and I can see that my drivers are going to be close by that pickup or that delivery in the next so and so minutes. So you can now you can use location proximity to work out, you know, how far away that drive is going to be from those pickups. So again, that's why some allocators like using the map view to allocate, because they want location proximity. Some people use the grid view. So yeah.
Excellent. Alrighty. Thank you everybody for attending. Hopefully that gave a bit of insight into, you know, the industry challenges that I think probably a lot of people on this call could relate to, and how Yojee works to sort of centralize, visualize, and optimize those challenges on the Yojee platform. When you exit the webinar, you'll end up on a landing page. If you'd like us to contact you or want some more information, just stick your email address in there and Mark or I will get in touch with you. But other than that, hopefully that was beneficial. Hopefully we helped sort of expand on what Yojee does and the value that we bring to those, you know, first mile, last mile supply chain participants. And thank you very much, everyone, taking the time out of your day to attend. And thank you to my other panelists, Alex and Mark and Fiona. Much appreciated.